What's up, people? It's your boy Hoom Boom back with another segment of the Hold Up Show. And hold up, are the Philadelphia 76ers lemon lovers? Today we're going to be discussing the worst contracts in the history of the Sixers while also giving context to their recent big free agent signing that was supposed to be a franchise completing signing of a championship caliber team. Now, let's get into it. See, I've compiled a list, and I feel as though I should have spent a little more time researching exactly how many terrible contracts given to mediocre or past their prime superstars / Hall of Famers or unproven talent, right? The potential pay, right? You pay for potential and hope it pans out later. I've been a diehard Sixers fan since I strolled and bully bopped out the womb. You know what I'm saying? So I had to endure a lot that came with this franchise. And not just that, the Sixers franchise, but all Philly franchises from my time entering this earth in 1981. So you could imagine the hardships that I've went through dealing with Philly franchise teams and some of the decisions they've made or some of the lack of sealing the deal, so to say, you know? And the one that I've struggled with the most is the Sixers, because the Sixers in basketball is my favorite sport. So therefore, I'm more in tune with the Sixers. It's almost equal with football, but I'm always just more in tune with the Ballers because I just feel like I can relate to them more. We cut from the same fabric, so to speak, you know? So I have a list from an article from The Athletic of the worst 76ers contracts in the last 20 years. And, you know, it was two gentlemen giving their opinions of what they felt were horrible contracts in the Sixers. And their list was very similar to mine. The only issue that I have, not with their list, but with the information that I was able to gather to do this topic real quick and bring it to you guys, was the horrible contract extensions as well. So, because a lot of that information hasn't been dissected or analyzed as much as far as Philly is concerned. You know, they've done like articles on the NBA as far as like the NBA as a whole's worst contract extensions or head scratching contract extensions. So when it comes to this, it was kind of hard to narrow down. So I just had to go off of my own personal memory. And sometimes, you know, I'm human. We miss a few slide through the cracks that were painful that we probably wanted to naturally just put out of our out of our memory and just write that off, especially if your team is in a period of time when they're actually playing good. You almost all but forgot about, you know, certain things or certain players that came through town. Now, I also want to say this before I get into these lists and to some of these decisions that were made by the Sixers franchise as far as current and old past free agent signings as well as contract extensions. So, I just want to give respect to the basketball players, because this is not a personal attack at y'all guys. I know how hard it is to get to the NBA, to get to the highest level of whatever your goal is in whatever industry that you are in, because I could be on the list for worst YouTube show, what I'm saying, or worst YouTube host or personality, and I would have to eat that, because if that's a majority opinion, I got to look at myself and get better or whatever. But this is something different. If someone is offering you $50 million, you're not going to turn it down when it's guaranteed money. And once ink is the paper, who cares what anyone thinks? You're up. This is what you worked your whole life for, to have your family in a better situation, financially stable for generations, hopefully, if you are financially responsible. So this is not any personal attack to anyone, because I respect all of you, and I know you probably to this day can still, blow me out on the court. So so this is not a personal attack on you as a professional athlete, as your athletic ability, or your agent being able to get you this contract. That's their job, So let's get into it, right? One of the first ones that I would like to speak about that was always a head scratcher, but I knew what the situation was and why they did it. It was the point afterwards that had me puzzled. And that is Dikembe Mutombo. Rest in peace to Dikembe Mutombo. He was a great player, a defensive legend in the game of basketball, and nothing but respect for him, and a great humanitarian to not only the league but to Africa, and help bridging that gap and bringing talented African players over into the league, or getting the league to tap into those hidden talents over there, right? As well as building the hospital and other things, right? He was just a great ambassador of the league, a great brother of Africa, and it was just great. It was great to see his career. Great man, right? But there was always this thing that was said about Mutombo, and there was always a stigma on certain overseas players, especially African players, right? Because we are normally, well, I don't want to say normally, but for the most part, they are seeking out these athletes or these, genetic marvels over there in Africa. But they are in most situations, they are in, destitute environments and things like that. And they are willing to do whatever to change their circumstance, right? And that is also lie about their age, right? So they would get over there. There ain't no birth certificates. There is no documentation. You just got to go off the word of whoever's running the village, or however that was working, and however they were able to see these athletes and have them funnel through to be able to witness and see if there's something there talent-wise to bring to the States, right? Or to a college, or to whatever, to cultivate, develop, whatever, right? So if you're a person in a certain situation and this is an opportunity to get millions of dollars and help a whole village of yours, or help your immediate situation, you're going to lie about your age. All it does is have them lower the potential value on you. It does not mean that you still don't have the talent to help a team or whatever in the league, right? So the point of the matter is there's a stigma about them lying about their age. So they was coming over there and they would be 21, 23, 24-year olds passing or trying to pass themselves off at 17, 18, 19 to get the look, to get the potential, to say, oh, he's a beast, he's a boy in a man's body, and da 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 da, right? We heard all the terms, we heard all the, draft cliche lines, right? Mutombo always had a stigma on him that no one actually knew his age, right? And when you looked at him physically, he always looked like he was 10 years older than what they were actually trying to tell you he was. And by the time he got to the Sixers, I promise you, he looked at like a 45-year-old man out there. But he was the biggest and best option to try to somewhat contain Shaq, right? Somewhat hover on him and use other defenders to help, but in certain situations, enough size, enough length, and enough basketball IQ or enough defensive acumen to try to alter or slow down Shaq, right? The big behemoth that was running the league when they made that decision to trade for Mutombo, right? And if you also remember, the Sixers started off 10-0 in 2001. It was Iverson's best year as a professional. It was his peak. It was the apex of everything that Iverson represented. It was everything that the Sixers and Philly, we was in our moment right there, right? And our starting center was Theo Ratliff. And then Theo Ratliff got injured. He broke his wrist, right? And it put the Sixers in a situation that they felt as though this was the year that they could possibly bring that parade down Broad Street, right? At least in my lifetime that I could acknowledge. I mean, we did win in, 83 with Dr. J and Moses Malone. But I was 2-1, So this would have been the opportunity for me to see and been in a position for that franchise to possibly bring something down Broad Street. But all the real basketball experts, we knew, even wishing upon the star because this was our team, we knew that the Lakers was just too much. Period, right? They were the Lakers, the Spurs, they were just too much, right? And we were this little engine that had this powerful little guy just, I don't want to say overachieving. I just want to say he was displaying his full superpowers that year, right? And they wanted to give him the opportunity to fully maximize everything he had to kind of, because championships are forever. They are forever, right? So they decided to trade Theo Ratliff to the Atlanta Hawks to get Dikembe Mutombo. And when it went down, everyone could see and everyone was excited because it was to some degree an upgrade, but it was also a downgrade because we knew he only probably would have had that year and maybe another year left in the tank at productive productive high-level basketball. But also, Theo Ratliff was more athletic and all that, could catch the lobs and do, he could provide points, hustle points, right? He didn't really have an offensive game. His offensive game almost mirrored a younger Dikembe Mutombo, a younger, more athletic Dikembe Mutombo, right? But through the years, Dikembe Mutombo did establish and develop a post game, a hook, a little free throw jumper, elbow jumper, right? He had some things in his repertoire, right? So we were all excited. We all understood, right? But after that 2001 run, the Sixers, knowing that they had a dinosaur, knowing that they had a center who was well into the decline of his Hall of Fame NBA career, decided to extend this brother for 4 years and $68 million. Now, when I first seen that, I was like, bro, this is outrageous, right? It's outrageous. And I just, for the life of me, just could not understand why we gave a 45-year-old man 4 more years and $68 million more, right? And just like we thought, that contract came back to bite us in the long run. Because now we were stuck with this depreciating asset, right? Our asset that is now a liability, and it got to the point Mutombo couldn't even get up and down the court. Like, the offense was running so slow that it was impossible to have him out there, right? So that's the first one that I would like to speak about. Secondly, a beloved Philly son, homegrown, born and raised, college career, Temple legend, Aaron McKie. Aaron McKie in the league, just looking as a basketball fan, was probably, at best, in my opinion, a 6 man. Like, at the height of his powers, he was still coming off the bench for me. He was great and he did what he needed to do for us. But 7 years, $33 million for an at best 6 man average offensive player, I did not understand it. I did not understand it. And we also got to take into account the politics of agents, organizations, GMs, handshakes, under the table handshakes, wink wink deals, promises of pie in the sky later. If I get AI to sign for 5-10 million less, you have to give so and so contract X amount of years and whatever, right? Favor for favor, right? So we don't know the full backstory of the contracts and things of that nature. And we also are not in the building, so we don't know all that the players are contributing to the franchise and organizations to help them run somewhat efficiently until they are able to acquire greater talent, right? But Aaron McKie makes the list for me. I don't understand giving Aaron McKie a 7-year contract. You also remember back in the day, there were the 7-year, 8-year, 9-year. You were allowed to lock up a certain player for X amount of years. Like, we all seen, the Showtime show with about the Magic Lakers run, and they signed Magic to a lifetime contract of $1 million a year. But as the league grew, his contract became less and less. It became more valuable to the organization and the franchise, but it became worse as an contract for Magic, because he was the face of the league and took the league to multi-billion-dollar status, opened it up to the world markets, and you're only making $1 million and they're bringing in billions. You see the mistake in taking that lifetime contract. But at the time, it was unheard of, unprecedented. It was outrageous, right? So we no longer see, or we no longer have those outrageous time length contracts, right? I think it's capped at the supermax of 5 years if you're with a certain organization, and as a free agent, it's 4 years, right? But now the money is enormous. So then that makes it more difficult to move or get off that player if the asset is now a liability compared to how much of the cap that asset or liability is consuming, right? So the next on the list for me, Greg Buckner, right? A player who career average 5 points a game. Why did we give him a 6-year, $18 million contract? When at the time, he signed in 2002, but at the time, the salary caps were probably 50, 60 million in total, right? And we're making a stretch to give 6 years and $18 million to a player that's averaging a career 5 points a game, right? And if we look back in 2002, it was nothing that Greg Buckner could actually provide to keep Philly a championship caliber team, or to keep that little engine that could still rolling the next year. So I will never understand that contract, right? So Greg Buckner makes the list, right? Next on my list, Eric Snow. Eric Snow, the defensive legend and sidekick Robin in the backcourt to Allen Iverson's era in Philadelphia, right? Once he transitioned over to shooting guard. After 2 high-level seasons alongside AI as his running mate, the Sixers rewarded Eric Snow with a 4-year, $25 million contract extension. And I understood the organization showing good faith to a consummate professional, because that's what Eric Snow was. He was a consummate professional. He came in, he did his job. You didn't hear no riff, nothing. He did the dirty work. But was he worth 4 years and $25 million at that time? No. 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 So that's why Eric Snow makes the list. Next on my list, if so many Philly fans can remember, the dreaded Elton Brand signing of 5 years and $80 million. Now I knew when this was going down that this was a horrible mistake. Horrible. Yes, I knew Elton Brand was the typical 20-10 guy on paper from former number 1 overall pick for the LA Clippers, and did his darndest to try to bring that franchise out of its curse, right? And he was a good player, but he ruptured his Achilles, right? At a time where sports medicine was still not as advanced as it is right now in regards to injuries of the Achilles, right? They were just getting good and figuring out ACLs, MCLs, and ligaments and things like that. But the rupturing of a Achilles, especially for a ground and pound undersized power forward, is not a good idea to give him $80 million and he recovering off the operating table. It was a gamble on potential. You knew he was a proven commodity in the league, but it's like when you go to the dealership, you see the pretty whatever and wonder, why is it even on the market? How did it get a chance to reach the market if it's such a premium thing? You check the Carfax, it was in a horrific accident, or it was in a flood, or it was whatever, right? And they bought it back to life, right? If you were told that, you would not buy that car, right? But not the Sixers. The Sixers bought the car while it was still in the flood. As they were pulling it out the flood, the Sixers paid top dollar for it. It was at the mechanic getting fixed on its accident of being hit by 3 or 4 cars, right? And in the midst of them ripping off the sides and replacing stuff, the Sixers come in and say, I'll pay double. I'll pay top market value for this. Right? And I remember at that time we were also in talks with I believe it was Josh. What is his name? I believe his name was Josh. He played for Atlanta. Hold on one second. Josh Smith, right? We were in talks with Josh Smith. We were about to offer Josh Smith a contract. Now, I knew Josh Smith was a little reckless, but he was young. He was athletic. He wasn't hurt. He fit a mentality. Like, I think he would have fit in seamlessly in Philly because he was tough and he was willing to take that shot. You know what I'm saying? Like, even if he missed horribly, he was still willing to take that shot. Or if he made, he had the mental makeup to play in Philly, in my opinion, at that time, right? And then they got the call because I guess I really want to say that the Clippers was like, yo, bro, we see that leg. We are not giving you $80 million. And the agent said, okay, I'm going to leverage Philly against y'all. If you sure you don't want to sign? And they were like, we are sure. And they let him go to Philly because they knew he was damaged goods, right? And the agent made it happen, and the Sixers fell for the bait, right? They told Josh Smith to go away. We're bringing in Elton Brand, 20 and 10 guaranteed, right? A bona fide core player that you can run your offense through, right? However, that coach at the time, I think he wanted. I want to say it was Doug Collins, but I'm not. I'm not completely sure. I want to put it on or Eddie George, but I know they were running. They wanted to run the post inside out type of offense and have it run through Elton Brand, but yeah. That's why he makes the list. Bad contract, consummate professional, did all he could to earn every bit of that money, but he was just damaged goods. He was just never the same person that we expected when we were getting. And he's assistant general manager of the Sixers right now and doing a phenomenal job, I believe. I never understood why they even bought in Daryl Morey. Maybe it's something I'm not seeing that he does in the background because I'm not fully aware of all the things that and responsibilities of a general manager. And maybe Elton Brand, because he was a first-time general manager, it probably was just, bring him in, show him some different things. While he's learning and grooming, he could possibly take over somewhere else or take over if and when they decide to part from Morey, right? But yeah, he makes the list. Horrible contract, franchise altering setback, in my opinion, right? Next on that list, I want to talk about Kwame Brown, right? Kwame Brown, former number 1 overall pick by Michael Jordan. Good brother. Listen to his YouTube channel. Love his mentality. Love what he's about. Love what he did in 2020 as far as shutting up the haters. You know what I mean? That was speaking down on his career and his accomplishments, because it is an accomplishment to be picked by the greatest player of all time at number 1, regardless of the circumstances, and stay in the league for 10, 12, 13, 14 years and amass millions of dollars to take care of not only your family but a community, and drop gems that nobody knew that you had this type of awareness and intelligence in how you were presenting yourself. So salute to you, brother. But at that time, I could not understand why the Sixers gave you 2 years, $6 million guaranteed, and you played an equivalent of 269 minutes for that $6 million. Congratulations, brother. Congratulations. But you do make the list for one of the worst contracts ever by the Sixers. So yeah, moving on. I mean, as far as the Kwame Brown thing, I don't think they were expecting him to come in and be anything. Like I'm assuming he was there for bench support, a big athletic body to come off the bench and provide something, whether it was offensively, defensively. I don't know what the vision was that they see from him, but possibly they needed a big man and he was available and they decided to go that direction. It was just the wrong direction. The wrong direction. Next on that list, Samuel Dalembert, the Haitian sensation, right? I liked Samuel Dalembert's game. I appreciated his game. He was like Theo Ratliff-esque, more athletic, taller, longer. Not as great as a shot blocker, but did have a defensive presence, right? And was a good compliment to AI. It was a good compliment to the team. And, they drafted him and they developed him. We got to see that there was something there. But it was not 6 years, $65 million something there. It was not. Right? It was not. Let's just be completely honest. It was not. Now, when you break that contract down of, $10 million a year, especially if you're looking at today's NBA money, that contract is a steal for a player like Samuel Dalembert. Samuel Dalembert was not a bad player. He was a very productive player. He was above average center, right? He could help a team win something if he was in the right situation, right? But the Sixers in 2005 was not the right situation. So why commit 6 years and $65 million to Samuel Dalembert? That meant you just made him a core player, and my memory serves me correctly, he never played like a core player. Just a piece, complementary. And I don't really know complimentary players that get 6 years, $65 million core money, right? Unless it was a mistake or the organization overvalued them, right? So Samuel Dalembert makes my list, right? Also, who makes my list? Brian Skinner. So you mean to tell me Brian Skinner was worth 4 years and $25 million, right? In 2004, right? So you mean to tell me he was bringing the same value, if not more, as a Eric Snow in that same time frame? A player who, as a fan from the outside looking in, he is a 7th, 8th rotational player off the bench at best. Never seen him as a starter. Never seen him as, oh my gosh, we got Brian Skinner. He's going to move the needle for us. He's going to provide something to make us win games. Never seen it. Right? Who made that decision? They should never be in a basketball front office again. Right? Next on that list, another more recent sting of horrible decisions, right? Jarrett Bayless. Now, in a time where we were trying to figure out our young core franchise players, right? These two young Lamborghini and Ferrari at the time that we gave the keys to the organization to, and trying to find complementary pieces to go around them. Somebody thought that Jarrett Bayless was the complementary piece to put that possibly could go alongside Ben Simmons at the time, right? No! No. At the height of his powers, he was a 6 man at best. At best. He could hit the 3. He was a good complementary combo guard, but he was a spot duty player, a spark off the bench. He was not a starter. He was not someone you throw out there and just say, I'm going to expect 15 to 20 from you, or even 12 to 18 from you. He just wasn't. He was a good player. He got here and he caught the injury bug immediately, and we didn't even get a large enough sample size of what we used to see from him in other places that he played. But at the time, you hear 3 years, $24 million, $8 million a year for a player that talent-wise, from the eye test, is no better than a 6 man at best, right? And $8 million for a 6 man might not be a bad idea. If it's Manu Ginobili, if it's Jamal Crawford, if it's, Marcus Smart maybe or something, not Jarrett Bayless. I'm sorry. He makes the list. Next on my list, Kenny Thompson. Kenny Thompson. This was at a time that the Sixers were in a weird era. It was like the start of the post-Iverson era, and we were trying to get rid of bad contracts and figure out something. We were like a middle of the road, bottom end tier team. And we decided to give Kenny Thomas 7 years, $50 million. Mind you, this is in the same year that we gave Eric Snow 4 years and $25 million. So you mean to tell me Kenny Thompson was worth double a severely undersized 4? Should have been a 3, but his game was of a what we would call a Draymond-esque type of undersized post guy, but he 6'7", maybe 220, 210 soaking wet playing the 4. He was a 6-man at best in his abilities. He was not a starter unless he was to change his game to a more small forward game. He would be great in today's game, and that contract of 7 years and $50 million would be a incredible steal. But in 2003, it was a horrible mistake, horrible blunder, horrible evaluating of talent and overpaying. Right? So Kenny Thomas makes the list. So those are a bit of the free agent contract signings that I have on my list, right? As the worst, like horrible decisions, right? Now, there's 2 other people on this list that I did not bring up, but I'm going to discuss. And they're very recent. And we kind of still feel the sting of having them in some weird way, right? And that is Al Horford and Tobias Harris. Right? Al Horford was not a lemon. Al Horford was past his prime. Al Horford put them in a situation that he knew this was his last big contract that he was going to get, and he was going to probably go wherever to get it. And it happened to be the not crosstown, but the cross division rival Sixers. Because we've seen so many times Horford stop Embiid, didn't hit a clutch corner 3 or you know what I mean, wing 3, because Embiid or whoever was responsible for him had to sag off for the other threats on a Celtic team, right? We've seen it plenty of times. Game on the line, Embiid trying to do something in the post, and this undersized center with great defense ability somehow comes up with a way to stop him, right? He was like an Embiid killer in crunch time, right? He just was not a scheme fit. He did not fit the philosophy. He did not fit in whatever they were trying to do. He was out of position. They wanted to put him at a 4 and try to use him to spread the floor, but also be tough enough, big enough to stop other players on the defensive side, as well as help with the rebounds with Embiid and all that good stuff, because they had Ben Simmons. Because they had Ben Simmons running the offense, they needed the lane to be open. But on the defensive end, they also needed someone big enough to help Embiid with the boards and with bigger players, right? To keep his fouls down and all that good stuff. But it was, you could just tell from the offset that it was not a good fit. It was not a clear vision or purpose that they had for Mr. Horford, and it just didn't work for him. Or he might have signed a contract and then just checked out until he wanted to get in a better basketball situation. Because when they sent him to, I believe they sent him to OKC, he was balling again. He was back at center. He was providing things. He was hitting his shots again. And it was just like, come on, bro. You just swindled us for $100 million. You know what I mean? But he was not a lemon. He just was not a good fit, right? And now we talk about Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris, on paper, was a good fit for what they were trying to do. He, at the time, was in a situation to capitalize off putting the Sixers in a situation where they couldn't let him walk away for the assets they gave up to acquire him mid-season for a possible championship run, right? Because when we look at that year of 2018 when Kawhi took the Raptors to the championship and won in his lone season there, the Sixers were stacked. It was, if you were to look on it now, or someone who wasn't a part of that era to live it and understand it, or that moment, I should say, not that era, but that moment a few years ago, they would have been like, how did this team not at least make it to the Eastern Conference Finals? You had at the time, stout Ben Simmons, looked at as a Magic / LeBron-esque potential player on the rise. And he was, at the time, still showing every bit of that to a degree. Then you had Embiid, Olajuwon-esque, just great footwork player, right? And he was ascending. He was leading the team. He was already unstoppable and still did not know all the functions of the NBA professional game at the highest levels yet, right? Then you have Jimmy Bucket Butler, right? That you acquired earlier in the season from the Timberwolves from a disgruntled situation and got him on your team, got him acclimated, got him going. And then at the trade deadline, you make another surprising move for a Tobias Harris, who was at the time a reputation of a silky shooter, scorer, that was a consummate professional, that looked like the power forward you want to put next to Ben Simmons. He was a below average defender as far as his reputation at the time, but during his time in Philly, he did play defense. It was everything else that was horrible. It's offense, is the displayed leadership, I want to say. I can honestly say that I think by year 2 or 3 of that contract, he was checked out of Philly mentally and just was keeping it professional and just showing up to work and doing his job. He already knew that he wasn't beloved. He already felt that the city felt that he was chosen over Jimmy Buckets. But if you were around for the situation, that's not the case. Jimmy Butler wanted Ben Simmons and Brett Brown out of Philly in order for him to re-sign, and they just were not going to do that because he possibly foreseen what most of us probably were mumbling, the mumbles at the time, but he's seen it firsthand and he wanted no parts of it, right? He wanted to play with Embiid. He loved Embiid, but he didn't want no parts of Brett Brown and Ben Simmons, right? He's seen a lot of coddling, a lot of babying, and he wasn't going for it, right? And Tobias Harris was the collateral damage of that scenario, and no fault of his own, he forced a max contract when he's not a max player. He's a great compliment player. He could be he could be Hall of Fame third option type of deal, you know, but he was not max player money status, right? And we were demanding it from him. Hey, you took this, you forced for this. We want 25 a game, 7 boards, 3-4 assists, and solid defense. You know, that's what, you know, and we weren't getting that. We got it sparingly. We got it here, there. He was trying to, you know, lift Ben up, be a leader, you know, trying to fill some sort of void that they felt as though left when Jimmy left, because it always was felt during the Embiid and Ben Simmons era, they never had a leader and they never had a real veteran presence that, you know, that Udonis Haslem, that Kenyon Martin type of, I will bark in your face, you know, this is what we need to do to professional. Y'all need to get on board. I don't care who and what they thought y'all was coming out of college. You ain't proved nothing yet, right? So yeah, that is this list from the Athletic article. But I also want to discuss our current issues that we are still recovering from. And that is extending Ben Simmons when this guy was out there not taking jumpers, being left wide open. How do you do this? How do you do this? It's outrageous. The only leverage you had was to not pay him. And it would have signaled to the rest of the league, he ain't who he said he is. He ain't what was presented. And you would not have been handcuffed by the contract once things went bad, right? Now, I know we're talking about worse contracts and contract extensions, free agent signings that the Sixers had, because they are lemon lovers. That has just become the thing with them. They love old, damaged, past prime goods. It's almost like they don't do the due diligence, or they just get to a point that they put themselves in a situation where it's, what else are we going to do? There's nothing else, right? Sometimes you just got to punt. Sometimes you got to punt. Sometimes you got to give them a prove it contract. You want to play with us? You don't want to shoot jumpers? How many years you was in the league before you get to the point where you're eligible for an extension, and that they are talking to your representatives about giving you the full extension because they believe that you possess everything to be a franchise player, but you have not taken a jump shot or jumpers? Someone should have been hit in their head and say no. They probably were so far invested in him that they probably was in the building and already knew that they shouldn't give him this money, but they had no choice business-wise because they were so invested, right? Still, sometimes it's better to just cut the losses, right? Instead of dig further in. So Ben Simmons makes the list as one of the worst signings ever by the Sixers. And just he's just coming into not one of the worst basketball players, but just one of the biggest what if stories and what happened stories. And we know what we kind of feel allegedly that it's mental, you know, or whatever, you know. I don't know if it's narcissism mixed with depression. I don't know if it's delusion mixed with depression. I don't know if it's... I don't really care. I don't love basketball, so I'm here for the check. I'll do enough to keep getting paid, because where else am I going to get this type of money? You know what I mean? It's outrageous to think about in the 2020s and teens of the world that there was an actual player out there that had the potential to be one of the greatest of all times, if not the greatest of all times, because we've never seen anything like him as far as physical attributes and athleticism. Just not even get somewhat there. That's not even shooting the ball. Like, not even trying to shoot. Like, where have we seen that? Where have we ever seen that? We've heard of hitches and gips and, you know what I mean, all that. But those are usually through some type of injury or something. Like with Markelle Fultz situation, I allegedly believe that he injured himself on a bike, motorcycle, moped, something to that nature, messed his shoulder up, and he just messed his shot up and whatever. And they tried to keep it under wraps and do whatever they could and hope he healed, and it just didn't work out. But this guy, ain't nothing wrong with this guy. He just won't shoot, right? They say, we don't even care if you... When have you ever heard an organization come on live TV or give live interviews and say, we don't even care if you miss. Just take the shot, please. Just get in a rhythm. Get comfortable with taking the actual shot. So, yeah. Ben Simmons makes the list. And now to our current mistake, disaster in the works. Paul Pathetic P. George. When this was being floated, it was, he fits the third option, complimentary, consummate professional that has an array of ways to score and affect the game, as well as known to be a top defender. Peace. This was anti-Tobias Harris, right? This was the guy with the right skill set to help complement what was coming into as the new core of the Sixers, with Tyrese Maxey and Embiid still in his prime, sorta. And to help maximize him at the most crucial point, which is the playoffs, right? To finally get him past the second round and see what he can do. Now, the thing when I heard it, I was like, first and foremost, everywhere this guy's gone, he's supposed to be the guy, to be the final piece, to be the whatever, to take this team to the whatever. And it never happens. We've seen it with Russell Westbrook. We've seen it when he got with Kawhi. We've seen him overachieve in Indiana in a different era, a different time of basketball before it became more of a shooter spread game, right? We've seen it. He hasn't closed the deal. So what would make Daryl Morey think that a 34-year-old underachieving defensive specialist, all-star, possible future Hall of Famer, Paul George, still had enough in the tank to give him a max contract to entertain coming to Philly? Right? He meaning Paul George, probably always felt that he never wanted to come to Philly. He had no desire to be in Philly, and he was coerced and convinced through the basketball gods and experts, pundits, and just the league in general telling him, yo, this is your perfect this is a situation you need to be in. Don't cry about the situation with the Clippers because this is a better situation for you, right? And he bought in. He wasn't going to get that money nowhere else. He wasn't going to get the full 4-year max contract nowhere else. Not anywhere he wanted to go, put it like that. And definitely not anywhere that had championship aspirations that could give him that contract, right? So he swallowed hard. He took the contract because he's on his way out. And all his actions and all his behaviors and all his body language since the time he's got here has shown that he does not want to be here. He is not fully invested in basketball anymore. He is ready to transition to whatever his other twilight life of after basketball is. And yeah. So, will Paul George be the disaster of this list? Like the number one? Will he surpass the likes of Brian Skinner, Elton Brand, Jared Bayless, Greg Buckner, right? Or will he somewhat justify his contract like Elton Brand did, trying to earn every game check as time went on? But see, the thing about he is like, Paul George is like the Anthony Davis of forwards. He could just walk and get injured. You know what I'm saying? Like, we've seen him just backpedaling and hyperextend his knee. No contact. No contact. We all remember the horrific injury he went through. We thought he was done then. We were happy to see that he made his way back after that. And I hope he sued the league, sued whoever put that. I'd hope he got his money. I hope he did something behind the door that got compensated somehow, some way. But yeah, I don't think anyone ever really looked at him the same after that injury, even though his play was still at a high level. It wasn't at the level that people thought it should be, right? And now, to the man, the myth, the infamous, the one, Joel Embiid. The reason Embiid makes this list, and I believe after this year, that this very well should get Daryl Morey fired. Get Daryl Morey his walking papers. Extending Embiid 3 more years when he had 2 years left on his contract. With them bad knees. With them bad work ethic. With that bad diet. Why would you extend this guy? Right? Now it goes back to the conversation of, if someone's going to offer me more, $200 million, I'm not going to say no. Even if I know I ain't got it no more. Not turning it down, right? But on the business side, it was looking at it as a way to make sure Embiid is here for the full 4 years that Paul George is here, and they just extended Tyrese Maxey to the max, which he deserves, you see the development, you see the growth of the leadership as not only the array of stuff that he's added to his game, and sky is the limit for Mr. Maxey. Shout out to him. So I understand it from a business aspect, but you, Daryl Morey, should have known, and I probably were very privy of, this guy is injured, damaged. He is not going to be better than he was 2 years ago when he should have won the MVP over Jokic. Not the actual year that they just gave it to him because he was crying for it. No, but that year he actually should have won it, and that was his peak. I don't believe he will get any better or display anything past that year. He is now, at best, when healthy, big quotation marks, when healthy, a second option. That's where he's at in his career now. Yes, he's still dominant. No one can stop him. But is he really dominant? Has he ever displayed dominance to you from the eye test? Has he really? Or has he tried to be this ginormous finesse player? Right? He never displayed the Grizzly mentality that you would need to actually be called the dominant force in the league. He is the biggest, the strongest, the most skilled, and yet he plays so soft. And then for your game to be so soft, how are you always injured? How are you flopping on the floor? You should be knocking them to the floor. Like, why are you trying to Euro step just to show that you can do it? No one cares. Dunk on them hard. Like a Dembona. Dunk on them like that. But then we come to realize if you're a basketball player, you have to realize he can't jump. He has some sort of below the rim game. He does not have a turn around and bang on somebody's head type of game. He does not have a catch the lobs from all over the place type of game. That was one of the reasons James Harden was so frustrated when he got here. Like, man, I thought you were actually him, but you ain't. You wanna pick and pop. You got a bit of this Ben Simmons disease. You got a bit of you have a lot of bad habits. Bad just bad positioning. Just bad. Like, you're not a perimeter player. You are the center. Be a center that can do stuff if they're caught on the perimeter. But don't make the perimeter your game. It is not a successful thing for you. So once James Harden realized that, I'm pretty sure he wanted to get up out of here immediately. And then when they did not give him the money, because he was only there because his guy was there. And when his guy did him dirty, right? In so many words, with the wink backdoor under the table handshake deal that didn't go through because Daryl Morey just couldn't professionally do it. It would look horrible. He's somewhere in his office kicking himself now. Like, look at him out there in LA balling out of control. Oh my gosh. James was my man. Right? But you could not, with the performances he had in crucial times of the game, especially the way they changed the offense and he was commanding the offense, he just wasn't showing up in the playoffs. He did not do what he was sit there to do, which was get the Sixers past the second round. And if he would have got him past the second round, I'm pretty sure Daryl Morey had enough to justify giving him the contract. Like, man, he got us past the second round. I got to give him this money. He's got to stay, right? I'm happy that didn't happen because that probably would have made this list. Even though James Harden is not a lemon. I just think it was not a good basketball fit. So yeah, Embiid. Why did Daryl Morey give him that contract and he's already on one knee and he accomplished nothing? We are going to be crying by the end of these contracts. You'll have a 37, 38-year-old Paul George. You'll have a 34, 35-year-old Embiid. And Does anyone really want to see what that looks like with them making $60 million a year, taking up $120 million of the salary cap? Does anybody want to see what that team would look like? I don't. I've suffered enough. I've been through the process. I've been through when they didn't even they wasn't even planning to lose. They were just losing. I've been through all this. I've been through the Barkley era. I've been through all that. All of it. And I'm telling you, whoever is in there running stuff needs to be let go. You don't give a guy with one leg. I don't care what he did. He didn't do anything because we don't have a parade. We don't even have memories of being in the finals to even appreciate what you would have left on the floor during the finals. Yes, we seen you on one leg in the first round, second round, give it all you get, but that means nothing. We've seen that story enough. So, to the main topic, to close this out, why are the Philadelphia 76ers lemon lovers? If you do not study your history, you are deemed to repeat it. They have been doing nothing but repeating awful signings, awful use of the cap, and tell us that they are putting us in a position to win a championship. And it's hard to believe. It's hard to believe. It's just hard to believe. So, I want to know your thoughts. Like, comment, subscribe, share. It's your boy Hoom Boom. This is the Hold Up Show. And hold up. Can we stop buying lemons, 76ers? Stop. I cannot take anymore. Stop. Paul George scored 2 points against the Brooklyn Nets. Stop it. Stop. Stop. And one more thing, I'm going to do a video on how can you evaluate a player. How would you know once you give a player the money that they're going to still play? Because that be part of the issue as well. These contracts fully guaranteed and they don't play. They just go out there and just steal the money. So, look out for that. Your boy Hoom Boom. Hold up. And I'm out. Peace.